friends, the show starts now. Welcome to the weekly roundtable, where the takes are hot and FOMO set to disable. Welcome to the weekly roundtable, where friends are made and we all drink that red maple. Break. Juan's got his eyes on the latest somehow. Reading forex that make you go wild. Crypto crazy is a man on a mission like a Tesla. He most def got a vision. Weekly roundtable, we got no cables. Predicting the future using their bagels. Chart is throwing out numbers, no trouble. He finds the gems for real, no struggle.
Well, thanks, guys, for joining us this week for another edition of the Crypto Roundtable. We are going to discuss crypto adoption and more specifically Bitcoin adoption. We are going to actually comparing and show a couple of charts compared to the internet bubble or .com bubble back in the 90s and just how much Bitcoin and crypto in general is really comparing to that as when it comes to adoption. We have a couple of our other guests coming up later on. This week, I have Chart joining me to start off the show. How are you doing this week, sir?
There we go. Great. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, it's a little bit of a lull in crypto right now. Not much going on. Although if you're following the political scene, there is a whole lot going on. We'll have to see how that affects the current run. But we're right around all-time highs. Currently at $106,044. So can't complain about that. Still waiting for the alt season to happen, or at least alts to take off. There are a few here and there that are doing well. Today, or was it yesterday? Today, the NVIDIA numbers came out. They were better than expected. So I'm hoping that some of the tech cryptos, altcoins, have a little bit of a run here. We'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, so how you been doing? How was your week?
Good. I've been talking to friends of mine, and they're suggesting to me that I should start a Bitcoin Treasury Reserve Fund. Apparently, that's all the rage these days. So maybe I should get into some of that. I've been good, just watching the markets and just laughing to the idea of everyone now scrambling to try to have some sort of a treasury, Bitcoin treasury for their own benefit. And we started off the pre-show with talking about different things, and one of the things that came out across my screen was the premier football club in Paris, PSG, announced that they're doing also a Bitcoin treasury, which is quite comical to me because we would have gone a full 180 at this point with Bitcoin, where now people and companies, even football clubs, are vying for that piece of pie, right? And it's getting smaller and smaller, and more we have strategy buying Bitcoin, the more we have companies looking at reserve on Bitcoin. We have states, we have countries. It's going to be a race to the top, and I think at some point there's going to be a squeeze on what's available on the markets. It's something that not everyone's going to be selling, right? And so if everyone starts pulling their Bitcoin away from centralized exchanges, we're going to get to a really big time crunch. And what would that mean is actually a fair volatility in price action, right? So you will have your spreads on exchanges fairly big, like 5%, maybe 6%. So you would have the lack of liquidity on Bitcoin, which is crazy, but it will happen. There's just not enough of it. And all these exchanges that are out there, they're going to be vying for that liquidity, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be absolutely tough. So I'm have my big bag of popcorn ready. I'm going to wait and see what happens because it's going to be fun.
There's definitely a price squeeze coming. There's no doubt about that. I read that just last year, 2024, before we had that initial pump in the market, there was close to 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges combined, and now there's right around 1 million. So it is dropping fast, and you're right. There's going to be FOMO. People are going to hear how much it's dropping. They're going to finally realize what Bitcoin is all about and the security you get from it. And people are just going to race to buy it. And like you mentioned, football clubs of all things are beginning to buy it. Different countries, different states, institutions. Obviously, they've been around for a while. If people aren't quick enough to the draw and get exposure to Bitcoin, you're going to have the Michael Saylors and the BlackRocks of the world just scooping it all up, and there's going to be nothing left. But you're right, a price squeeze is coming, and I'm looking forward to that. I also read today that the UK Reform Party They're another one that just introduced or going to be introducing a bill for a Bitcoin reserve. So even over in the EU, it's happening over there as well.
And the thing that people have to distinguish between what's happening with Bitcoin and altcoins is this. These companies, these businesses are not buying altcoins at all. They're actually buying Bitcoin. But for every Bitcoin sold, there's going to be a seller. And that seller is going to utilize their money into buying the altcoins, trying to maximize their potential, because at the end of the day, a bull run's a bull run. There's going to be multiples to be had. And so people are not going to let that money just sit there quietly while the bull run fades away. They're going to make sure that money is applied to some kind of asset that's going to rise in value. And I think this is why we're going to get that liquidity drain into the alts, and it's going to be amazing. People don't understand like the amount of capital that's coming into the market is going to be exponentially different than what we had in the past. And even today, like I've heard that people are switching from gold to Bitcoin because they're seeing the potential of like a double top, I think, on gold, and they're swapping it for Bitcoin. And it's going to be amazing to see the next. I don't know. I that's one thing I don't know. I don't know about you, but like I'm thinking, is the bull run going to be finished at the end of this year? There's a possibility we might have a prolonged bull run with like 2 or 3 years, maybe a 5-year cycle. Maybe it changes everything, and all of a sudden we have a 5-year cycle. I think everything's on the table at this point.
You know what? I'm in that frame of mind. In the beginning, I thought that this was going to be a cycle like all the others. They follow the 4-year, the halving, and all that. But because there is so much institutional money, and as we saw today, we heard today that a lot of other entities, we'll call them, are getting into Bitcoin. Yeah, you're right. I think the buying pressure is going to continue for longer than just the typical 4 years, and this could be extended. Like remember in the beginning of the bull market. Back when it first started, when we had that initial pump, it was, when did things really start pumping? Late 23, early 24, and then late 24, we really got that first taste. And everyone was saying, yeah, come spring, March, April, come May, walk away. That's going to be the end of the cycle. And here we are now, almost in June, and the cycle really hasn't started. So the extension has already begun somewhat. And I think, I don't think it's going to be the typical 4-year cycle this time around. I think it is going to be extended. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances because of, the administration down south, everything that's going on there with the macro. And then, of course, with, Saylor just keeps on buying. It seems like every Sunday he puts out a tweet hinting that he's going to buy on Monday. And sure enough, he does. And then you hear of other entities today. Actually, speaking of that, I read a little bit earlier that Tether, USDT, Tether, the company that owns Tether, they have over 100,000 Bitcoin and 50 tons of gold. So they are actually accumulating those risk on, well, I guess gold's not really a risk on asset, but they're accumulating Bitcoin as well. So, a lot of the big money that's in this space, we don't even hear about. And, you slowly hear a little bit here, a little bit there. But I think because of all this buying that's going on, and a lot of these people are probably going to hodl, they're not going to sell anytime soon. So it could extend this bull market. And that's a good reason for, anyone who is not quite in Bitcoin yet or in crypto. If you think it's too late, it's not too late. You're actually early when it comes to a long-term projection. You're nowhere near the early days. And I just want to show a chart while I get your comment on that. Okay, so here's a little story. Crypto's market penetration tipping point. So crypto is expected to cross the 10% threshold of adoption this year. And the market transition from niche to mainstream, which absolutely is happening, and that's the whole concept behind adoption. It is becoming mainstream. This is what I wanted to show. Actually, this chart. I know it's a little hard to see on the stream, but this shows, it compares the internet back in the 1990s to Bitcoin adoption, and this is the end of 2024 right here. And as you can see, the Bitcoin adoption has been outpacing the internet adoption from the 1990s. This comparing 93 and 2015 when it comes to Bitcoin and the internet respectively. And as you can see, the adoption of Bitcoin is way outpacing the adoption of the internet. And we all see how big the internet is now. So, you imagine another 5-10 years, just exactly how big Bitcoin and crypto as a whole is going to be.
Yeah, and also you can't forget about all the mining stocks. all the money companies that are put a lot of resources, a lot of money into mining, and they're going to obviously be an amazing play in the bull run. If you don't want to like put a lot of capital into Bitcoin and you think Bitcoin is not going to give you that many multiples, amazing plays are the mining companies. The Riot, the Hut 8, Clean Spark, Mara. I think there's a couple of other ones, but any of those are perfect at this time because they're at the very bottom of the channels in the trading world, and applying yourself to this Bitcoin run at any point with any means is absolutely necessary. And I think putting some money towards these stocks is perfect leverage against this nice Bitcoin run, because I think eventually you'll have your ETH that's going to go, and I think people are missing out the fact that the ETH just bottomed out against Bitcoin in the ratio.
Finally.
And now it's finally starting to feel like it's gaining strength again. And I know we've talked about this before, but whenever ETH makes an all-time high, our altcoin bull run, altcoin season is actually finally starting. And so we have to almost like cheer on ETH to be strong and all of this in order to get all the liquidity, right? Because it's all about confidence at the end of the day. If people are not confident, we're not going to get these runs, they're not going to put money into them. And so I think we're closer than before. We finally had our bottom, I want to say a couple of weeks ago, where ETH versus Bitcoin finally found that bottom, and now it's moving on the way up. And you saw the strength in altcoins right away as soon as that happened. Everything went up by 20, 30%, some even 50%. But we have to be patient. We just have to be almost understanding of the cycle's intentions. Like, we need to know that Bitcoin is the way. Bitcoin is going to show the strength. It's going to show the confidence in the market. But also ETH is the one that tells everyone, look, risk on, guys, risk on. Let's put money into all the altcoins and all the layer ones and all kinds of tokens that are some worthless, some are worth something, and go from there. But I think it's coming. I think more or less than what people expect.
Yeah, I agree. I've been critical of Ethereum, as you know, and they had their update recently, upgrade, if you want to call it. So, I think that really started the uptrend with ETH, and I've been impressed because the last 4 days, just looking at the chart here, the last 4 days, Bitcoin has been on a bit of a climb. 3 days? Yeah, 3 red days in a row. But yet Ethereum just seems to be green. They're having their small. Ethereum is having its small climb each day with green candles. I'll just switch over to the Ethereum chart. We can see right here. See Ethereum showing a lot more strength than Bitcoin, and as you mentioned, some of the altcoins are following it as well, which is really good to see. Girls with crypto experience, as times are changing, no longer are little isolated adopters. Yeah, no, you are absolutely right. But you're right, Chart. It has to be, Ethereum has to lead the charge, and Bitcoin has been so strong, probably because of the adoption curve and all the institutions that are getting into Bitcoin and the sales of the world. But Ethereum had been kind of lagging behind. There's no secret behind that. You look at the Bitcoin to ETH chart, and you can see that. But that's kind of reversing, which is exciting because our favorite altcoins will eventually follow, because Ethereum always does lead the charge.
And one of the things that I want to mention about Bitcoin and the idea of catalyst for Bitcoin is back in 2017, we were always thinking about, like, what is a catalyst for the next Bitcoin bull run? What are we going to see? And then I remember there was a one point people were making forks of Bitcoin, and that was a full catalyst for Bitcoin to go from, like, I don't know, say $1,200 to $20,000. People going crazy, and then the next wave came along. And what is the catalyst this time? And so, like, now that we have our ETF catalyst gone by the wayside, we had our halving event. This constant pressure of people, buying Bitcoin and putting it in the reserve from all different entities is going to be a constant catalyst for Bitcoin. Constant. And think about how many entities there are in the world. There's countries, there's businesses, there's individuals, there's private firms, hedge funds, all kinds of ways to buy Bitcoin. And it's like, the scale of this is incredible. Like, having been around now for a long time, this is unbelievable. And this is going to just trickle into all the altcoins. Like, altcoins will have a worth like no other, because, with Bitcoin being strong and it's given validity to the entire crypto space, we will not look at Cardano as, you know, a shit coin or shit blockchain. We're going to look at this as some value. Obviously, Solana is got his own thing. It's a casino chain and so on and so forth. But there will be value everywhere else. Like, you know, RWAs are coming along. We have Ondo putting a lot of these items tokenized on the blockchain. And so there's going to be a lot of values all across the board. And I think people are just not ready for it. They're just not.
No, you're exactly right. And I don't know if you recall, Chart, but back when Bitcoin was hovering around 40,000, and well, you were on this train as well. We were both saying, you know, people aren't bullish enough. You're not ready for what's coming. And you heard all the, you know, a lot of the bears saying, oh, no, we're not going up. This is just a, you know, a little pump. We're going to go back down to whatever they said, 30,000, 30,000.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening? Like 4 or 5 months later, we're back at the previous all-time high at 70,000. And now we're sitting at 105,000, 106,000, sorry. And you still have, like, people are saying that the chart doesn't look bullish, and that, you know, you still have those that are saying that, you know, we've hit a double top and Bitcoin's going down. You know, a friend of the channel, or my ex-co-host, Boy the Dip, he actually messaged me the other day, and he told me he's exiting the market completely at 115,000. I don't understand what people's mindset is. They don't see what's coming. They don't understand exactly what we are going to experience in the next couple of months. The buying of Bitcoin on the OTCs, you don't see it, but and price doesn't reflect it. But eventually, it will when that price squeeze does come along.
I mean, it's all about hoarding Bitcoin, right? At the end of the day, like, just because, say, Binance has, I don't know, say 100,000 Bitcoin, and they're selling some of that stash to OTC buyers, doesn't mean they want to they don't want to replenish that 100,000, right? They'll still want to, say, keep some for themselves, and you know, where they're going to get it, right? Obviously, they're going to get it from somewhere, and it's going to be through their own exchange. And so eventually, like we mentioned earlier in the show, like, there's going to be a squeeze of not enough Bitcoin on exchanges. There's going to be huge gap between the sellers and buyers on exchanges. So that spread is going to be incredibly big, and it's going to have huge spikes. Like, you're going to have moves of like 10% in a day. And you're like, what? How did it move 10%? When it's sitting at 110,000, you know, all of a sudden it's 120 and it's moving really fast. You're like, wow, is this possible? And yeah, it is. Like, if you ever traded any shitcoins before when it is low liquidity, all you need to do is you know, have some capital to move something like 20%. And I've done it myself. Like, it takes no effort. So imagine on a higher scale, you're trying to do the same thing, and then that's what's going to happen. You're going to have huge spikes, and everyone's going to think we're in a bull market, and then altcoin's going to go, and it happens on a dime too. It's not like you see it coming. That's the best part about this. It's just, you wake up in the morning, you're like, well, we're at 120, and you look at the alts, either sitting at, you know, 3,500 or whatever. You know, Solana's at 250 or more. So it happens on a dime.
Yeah, the best way I can describe it is we're going to get pumps of epic proportions that people are not going to be prepared for. Crypto Cruiser, welcome up. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing all right. Sorry I'm late. Work
that's okay.
getting in the way.
We do have a question from someone in the chat. David, he says, I don't have long to say. I just wanted to jump in and ask, how safe are hardware wallets? Well, Chart, I'll give you this one to you because I know you're a Ledger user.
Yeah, I've only used a Ledger. Yeah, I've only used a Ledger the entire time I've been in crypto, and I had multiple different types of ledgers. I have no issues with them ever, because I only use them when I'm trying to store things offline, and so I use them, you know, once in a while. But I always have a hot wallet, so that I can quickly swap in and out of things, whatever. If I get drained from a hot wallet, I don't care. It's a hot wallet that I really don't have anything important on. And then what I always do is I do a security check from time to time. Like, I'll go into my Ledger Live. I'll make sure I don't have any connected applications. I'll go into like MetaMask and other applications as well to make sure everything's clear. Even with all of that, you still have to make sure you update your ledger. If there's new security update, always update your ledger because they'll patch these little loopholes in coding. And I recommend them. I recommend
Yeah.
them
Well,
all the
yeah,
time.
same here. Any crypto I don't plan on touching. I just want to hold it, take it offline, take it off of it can't get hacked. They can't get into it because it's physically off the internet, I guess you could say. But the only worry I would have with that, or not worry, but the only caution I would give anyone using a hardware wallet is when you do connect it. There, sometimes depending on the app or depending on the other wallets that you're transferring, you sometimes do have to connect them, like to sign messages or whatever. Just be careful of that. The best thing to do with a hardware wallet is to not use it for any kind of everyday trading. Like you just said, Chart, use a hot wallet for that, like a MetaMask, Phantom, Crypto.com, whatever. But any crypto you want to store and not ever touch or not have any worries about, you put it on your ledger, unplug it from the computer, and away you go. It's like having a vault rate of your crypto. But yeah, thanks for that question, Dave. Hope that answered your question good enough.
Yeah, I always
so Cruiser, how are
recommend
you
it.
doing? Yeah, very recommended. Yeah.
Good. I just want to add a little something on the hardware wallet conversation. I've only used the Ledger myself, other than the Ballet wallet for a short time. And in my experience, they're very safe. Just don't ever lose that seed phrase.
That's right. Yeah.
Don't ever lose the seed phrase, because you're going to wish it wasn't so safe then.
Yeah. Well, they say out of the 21, or actually, I guess 19 million or 18 million or so Bitcoin that are in circulation, there's about 3 or 4 that are lost forever. So yeah, you got to be very, very careful with your seed phrase. Chart, did you have to hop off, or are you still good here for a minute?
Yeah, 3 more minutes and I'm gone. Sorry.
Okay.
I have to pick
Yeah,
up
no
my
worries,
dog.
no worries. I was just
If
gonna
I'm back in
move on.
time, I'll come back on. I'll come back on if I'm back in time.
Okay. Well, I just want to move on to the charts with Cruiser. I'll keep my eye out for you, Chart, if you
Okay,
drop off.
sounds good.
Thanks for coming on. Okay, so here's the Bitcoin chart. As I had mentioned, currently we are at 105,693, having a bit of a dip right now. Today hasn't been the greatest day, but I've got the M2 money supply up against the Bitcoin chart, and as you can see, we are still following it. Let me get my arrow on there. We're still following it like to a T. Depending on where you put this dip right here, could be this one right here. Hopefully it doesn't come down to 100,000, but we'll take this little correction because we know what's coming afterwards. It's another blast off. So nothing too crazy on the Bitcoin chart. Status quo, still doing well. I showed Ethereum just a few minutes ago. Showed that the Ethereum price, actually, let me get this off there now. The Ethereum price has held up pretty well, even with this dip that Bitcoin is going through right now. It's held up fairly well. So finally, Ethereum is showing a little bit of strength, which is amazing to see. Bitcoin dominance, I wanted to show. It did dip below here. We had a bit of a dip, but it's since kind of slowly gone back up. I would ideally like to see this reject off of this bottom trend line and then head back down further. That would just mean that we possibly head into an alt season, which would be amazing. And then the USDT dominance. This hasn't quite hit our target. Today, actually, it's pumped up quite a bit, actually. I didn't even notice this earlier. It was more down near 4.5. Yeah. Okay. Well, as long as we get down to this area, coinciding with the Bitcoin dominance dropping, we will see an alt season. And as Chart had mentioned, the cycle is a little bit different. People are eventually going to take profits from Bitcoin as that thing just goes crazy, absolutely berserk. And hopefully that money will funnel down into the altcoins, which it usually does every cycle. And that's what we're expecting. Okay, so go over some news here, and then I'll show another chart before we have. So Binance, the SEC has dropped their lawsuit against Binance. And the Binance president thanked President Trump and Chairman Paul Atkins after they dropped the lawsuit. And they quote here, they said, "Thank you to Chairman Atkins and the Trump team for pushing back against regulation by enforcement. As many know, if you've been in crypto for as long as we have, the old SEC commissioner, Gary Bettman, everything he did was by Gary Bettman." I meant that was NHL. Sorry for those for Canadian hockey fans. No, Skeletor. What's his name again? See, I always put him out of my mind already.
Gary Gensler.
Gensler, not Gary Bettman, Gary Gensler. My mistake. He, everything he did was by enforcement. So, so far, a lot of the SEC cases that were against crypto companies that had no merit or no grounds, they've been dropped. And the Binance one is the latest one that has been dropped. I mentioned the UK Reform Party wanting to put forward a bill for a Bitcoin reserve, which is phenomenal. Just added to the list of all the other ones that are adopting Bitcoin. Okay, so it's been an ongoing battle down in the US, as everyone knows, with the tariffs in the administration. Well, today, two courts, as a matter of fact, they both blocked the tariffs imposed by the administration, the 10% tariffs across the board, Canada, Mexico, and all the other countries. The bigger tariffs have been on hold. The administration put them on hold for 30 days, 60 days, depending on which country you're in. But the court ended up blocking the 10% across the board in all countries. Then a matter of hours later, after the administration appealed it, another court, a higher court, reinstated the tariffs. So it's back and forth, and you can see it in the Bitcoin price. Like, until this thing is completely settled, we're gonna have. Well, I mean, Bitcoin is volatile anyway, but we're gonna have a heck of a lot more volatility until we have this whole tariff situation completely sorted. But yeah, the Bitcoin price is not liking it whatsoever. But we'll see how that goes. Nvidia surpasses Microsoft as the biggest company by market cap, most valuable company by market cap. It's kind of back and forth, but as I had mentioned, Nvidia, ticker NVDA, they, as far as tech goes, they are the number one. They did take a hit not too long ago when the whole chip announcement was made that chips weren't going to be made. They weren't going to be manufactured in the U.S. and there was tariffs and all that. But they have rebounded and now they have overtaken Microsoft for the number one valuable company. We mentioned the USDT issuer Tether owns over 100,000 Bitcoin. So the whole theme of this stream is Bitcoin adoption, and it's clear to see. We show the chart with the internet. We've seen the adoption through all these institutions and of course the ETFs, which I'll show that right now. The ETF inflows for this week, which have been pretty good. The last 2 weeks, actually, we've only had 1, 2, 3 days in the red. Very, very small amounts in the last 2 weeks, but we've had a lot of green, as you can see. We've actually had 7, 8, 9 days straight of green inflows when it comes to the ETFs, even though the Bitcoin price really isn't reflecting that. So, we can just chalk that up to manipulation. We all know that the elite, they like to suppress the price as long as they can so that they can buy as much as they possibly can. And of course, drop the price even lower to liquidate and, steal all those, all that liquidity as well. So they're up to their games as usual, but inflows, they're rocking it. 2 weeks in a row now, we've had a lot of inflows in the ETFs. So adoption is looking good. So what are you seeing in the market, Cruiser? Anything that caught your eye in the last week? Actually, 2, because you weren't on the stream last week, so you've got 2 weeks of accumulation.
Yeah, and I wish I could say I had any kind of time to pay attention to what was going on. I've been so far out of the loop the last couple of weeks, so I'm trying to play catch up now, reading, just kind of looking at the market and reading the updates and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm totally out of the loop on what's going on.
Well, to be honest, there really hasn't been a whole lot. It's been a lot of wait and see, institutional buying, Michael Saylor buying more, and I think people are still a little bit spooked. I mentioned the chart before you got on the stream that I was talking to Boy the Dip a couple of days ago, and he is of the mind that the market is not going to do well fairly soon. He thinks that his strategy, actually, he said once Bitcoin hits 115,000, he's getting out. And to me, I find that to be a little bit early because we were almost there. We hit 112, and I think a lot of people are in that same sentiment. The fear and greed right now is only at about 62, I think, which is not very, very high considering Bitcoin is right around the all-time high. But a lot of people share his sentiment that there's fear of the market, fears of recession, and all that. But you got to think quantitative easing hasn't even started. The rates down in the U.S. haven't even begun to come down yet. The rate cuts haven't started, and there's so many bullish things that are on the horizon. So I don't understand the mindset of these people that think that the end is near. I just don't get it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think because of the way things have played out since last fall, really, um, the way things have played out has really affected people's confidence in the market. And I know we might have all these positive indicators and things happening throughout the world that should have a positive impact on Bitcoin and on the alts and on the entire market. But I think the confidence or the lack of confidence from people in general, whether it's institutions or retail investors, I think that's taken precedence over any other positivity in the market. I think it's going to hold it back. I agree with Boy the Dip in terms of this market's not going to get to its potential this bull run. I don't believe it is. I said that last fall as well. I just don't see it. It's kind of going to hit a plateau, and it's just not going to reach its potential. And that's the way I see it.
Well, that's a sharp contrast to the conversation that Chart and I were having before you got on. There are so many things going on behind the scenes. All the exchanges are running low or running lower on Bitcoin, and that there's going to be a price squeeze, and people aren't prepared for what's coming. I mean, you look at this chart, and you know what they always say, right? When in doubt, zoom out. And you look at this chart, and there's absolutely nothing to be bearish about. Like, this is just a crazy. It's up and to the right, and just because of the way this market has gone, it has been an unusual market. It hasn't followed the traditional cycle because we haven't had retail. Retail is not in the market. Retail, I don't know if they're just not interested in Bitcoin, if they feel it's too expensive, whatever the case may be, they're just not here. And any retail that is here, they're mainly in altcoins. And I don't know if it's I don't know. I don't know if it's uncertainty because of the macro, because of what's going on globally. I can understand that would put a little bit of fear into people, but you got to remember the money that the entities that have money, the institutions and the companies and the nations and the different states and the different countries, they're the ones with the money, and so they are the ones that are going to be buying up Bitcoin, risk on or risk off. Sorry. Which will send the price higher. You can't, if you're thinking purely retail, yeah, retail has no money. Nobody has extra money to be putting into a risky asset. But this bull market is not being driven by retail, it's being driven by institutions. And that's where the money is going to come from. And that's why I believe that we're going to continue higher. We're not going to get those outrageous amounts like some people are predicting, like, 200,000, 250,000, 300,000. We're not getting that this cycle. Like, that's just a little bit ridiculous. But I do believe, we're only about 2/3 of the way there. I think we're going to go another, 40, 50,000 up to about 150, anywhere between 150 and 155, which is a long way to go from here. And of course, altcoins are probably going to do a little bit better than that once we do get that altcoin season, whenever that does happen. That's my thoughts. Anyway.
Do you not think that with the economic uncertainty worldwide, not just in North America, but the economic uncertainty will affect the institutions' willingness to drive the market as they have in the past?
I think
with their investment.
Yeah, no, I understand, and that is a thinking that most people have. But my thoughts are, opposite of that. I'm thinking because of the way the world economy is doing, or the way it's going, and the uncertainty, they're going to want to put their money into something that they will. Not that it's going to be safer, but that they will get some kind of a return for. And you got to remember, like, you have to look at. Don't forget global money supply. Global money supply is rising. Like, right now, it is going up, and that is that's money that is available globally. So when you have money supply rising, they got to have a place to put that money. And I think the way Bitcoin is being adopted right now, some of that is going to go into crypto.
Yeah, I do see your point. I do see your point. But yeah, they need somewhere to put that money if they're willing to put it anywhere,
Yep.
right? A
And
lot of
go ahead.
a lot of these institutions may just be holding on to it, not investing it, um, which really is counterproductive. But something has to.
Well, as institutions get smarter, like Michael Saylor, for example, they understand that by holding their money in cash, it's being devalued every day, every week,
Mhm.
every month, every year.
Yeah.
And so they'd rather put, like you look at Bitcoin, on average, since its inception, excuse me, it's had an average return yearly of 100%. So Bitcoin has doubled in value on average every single year since its inception. What has cash done in the last 15 years? It has devalued. And
Yeah.
then I showed an article here just before you hopped on the stream as well that you also have to remember that Bitcoin, like Bitcoin adoption specifically, it's only about 6-7% of the entire population is in Bitcoin. And on this article, that this year they expect to cross the 10% threshold. So 7 to 10% of the global wealth or worth is in the billions of dollars. So if that comes into crypto, what do you think is going to happen to the Bitcoin price?
Hmm.
And then down here is the adoption curve. It just compares the internet in the 90s to Bitcoin from 2015 to the end of 2024. And as you can see, the Bitcoin adoption has been more than the internet. We all know what the internet is now. So, the next 5-10 years, the Bitcoin adoption, it's always going to surpass and blow by 10% of the world population that's involved in crypto. So you can get an idea of how big of a valuation some of these cryptos, especially Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the big ones, what they're going to be worth in the coming years.
I'm not sure if that's a fair comparison, comparing Bitcoin to the internet.
No, it's not. I mean, it's like kind of comparing oranges to apples, but it gives you an idea of the adoption of Bitcoin and crypto,
Yeah.
and at the speed at which it is growing. Percent of the population. I know it's not a fair comparison. It's comparing two different things, but kind of gives you an idea of the amount of adoption that's occurring in crypto.
Yeah. Well, the internet did have its naysayers as well.
Hmm.
Some big
Yeah, yeah.
players in the business said that the internet was a fad and wouldn't be around for more than 10 years. Well,
Yeah. What do we need that for? What's it good for? Yeah, I remember.
yeah.
I just aged myself, but I remember all that. Okay, so what else we got? Let's go. I do want to show the CBVI while we're here. Currently, give it a refresh. I believe we're at a 78. Yeah, 78. So we've only gone down 1 point since last week. Status quo on that. Everybody is still pretty bullish on Bitcoin. None of the indicators have peaked out, well, except for the Peel multiple actually has, which is interesting. But on average, all these indicators were still well below the 100%. And I showed the okay, and then the last one I want to show before we head out is Pi. For those that are unaware, it's the weekly. I read an article. I'm sure you did, Cruiser, as well. Go to the daily. That There we go. They have begun or resumed migration. And there was an article right up on Binance, and they were talking about how the Pi founders believe, or what their future holds, and the kind of like their roadmap. And they have, they have grants and stuff that they're giving to these different projects and apps that are coming out on the platform. And they want to, I guess, basically, they want to get through this whole migration process, make sure that all the pioneers that have Pi sitting waiting to migrate, that they get that migrated, get all the sell pressure out of the way, and then price can kind of stabilize. We had hit a bottom a few weeks back, and just kind of chucking sideways right around that 70 cents mark, which is really good actually if you think about it, considering when Pi was first launched on mainnet when it went live. No one really knew what was going to happen. It was all these pioneers had all this free high, and the sell pressure was massive. As you can see, the price did pump at first, but then the sell off began. But it's actually stabilized, and it's good to see. I guess I can get rid of this line. I don't think we're going to.
Well, and common belief was that Pi would never hit those levels. So
Yeah.
when it did
Yeah.
so rapidly, yeah, everybody just dumped it.
Yeah.
So
And I had no idea how well it was going to do. You heard the rumors about Pi being either $3.14 or 31 cents or whatever it was going to be, and I honestly didn't believe it would even be this high at launch, to be quite honest. So when it did get up to that $3, and what did it get up to? Yeah, it did get just over $3 after the first couple of days. I was shocked, but it's good to see it's holding strong, and people are still mining it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that did lose their passphrase, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the hardware wallets. Make sure any wallet, whether it be a hot wallet or a hardware wallet, put that passphrase somewhere safe. If you have to write it down, put it in a safe or try to memorize it, which I know is kind of difficult for 12 or 24 words, but make sure you do, because that is the most important thing. If you lose that passphrase, you are screwed, and there's no getting that crypto back. Okay, I guess that's about it. The stream, basically, we talked about, in conclusion, the Bitcoin and crypto as a whole, the adoption. It is being adopted like crazy. Institutions, football clubs. Cruiser, you weren't here, but Chart was mentioning that one of the football clubs over in the EU, they are actually having a Bitcoin reserve, which is kind of funny. But then again, football clubs over in the EU, they're worth a fortune. They're in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're looking to invest some of their money, and they're going to get some exposure to Bitcoin, which is good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we showed the other adoption. We have different states down in the U.S. Are having reserves. The U.S. itself is passing a bill for a Bitcoin reserve. There's a state, actually, Chart, and I couldn't quite remember which one it was, but one of the states down in the U.S., they actually have no taxes on capital gains. And, if other states adopt that, or countrywide, hopefully they do that up here as well. That'd be phenomenal. But yeah, the adoption is happening. It's happening fast. And I think it's just getting started. This thing is going to take off. Unsure how it's going to affect the cycle, like the actual 4-year Bitcoin cycle, but we'll have to wait and see. A lot of people seem to think it's going to follow the 4-year cycle regardless, but it's already veered a little bit from that, because if you did follow the 4-year cycle, I think it would have ended, April, May, sell in May, walk away. So it'd be anytime now that the cycle would have normally ended, but it's not near the top yet. So a ways to go. Thoughts, Cruiser?
I don't think it's going to hit the top. Just to reiterate my point from earlier, I'm not saying we've hit the maximum we're going to see for Bitcoin price action. I'm sure we're going to set a few more all-time highs with the up and down movement. We're probably going to hit that 150 mark at some point, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere near what people expected. And I also believe that this whole bull market is going to be, I guess, cut short, really.
Sure.
At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to play out on the timeline that people expected, say, a year ago.
Well, that's just it. That's something that Chart and I were talking about. Is a year ago, most people were saying that the top of the market was going to be right around now, and the cycle has extended, because going back to 24, when the December, a year ago, just over a year ago, or no, has it been a year? Not quite. 6 months ago, 7 months ago, when we had that first little peak in the market, that was supposed to be midway through the bull market. We had that correction, which ended up being a steep correction. It was supposed to be a small one. And then the market was going to continue through February, March, April, and then May was supposed to be when it was time to take profit and get out. But here we are in May. The price has basically gone sideways. There's been a lot of macro uncertainty. So the cycle has extended somewhat in time, not in the end result when it comes to Bitcoin price, but in the timeline.
Well, we'll see what happens. let's just keep the hopium going, I guess. Hope for the best here, but it's a waiting game. It's been a waiting game, it feels like, for a whole year.
Yeah, and that's just it. You know, extenuating circumstances like the election down in the U.S., the whole tariff scare, the macro environment, it's different, and so I think a lot of people are just kind of sitting on the sidelines, waiting to see what happens before they jump in. Whereas under normal years, they would have already jumped in by now, and we probably would have peaked out. So that's why I believe it is extended a little bit anyway. Once the fear is gone and all the tariff things have been sorted, I think that's when we can finally take off. And of course, interest rates down in the U.S. once they start coming down and quantitative easing. So, but we'll have to wait and see. That's it from us. Thanks everyone for joining. Don't forget, nothing on the stream is considered financial advice, strictly for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'd really appreciate it. And leave a comment down below about anything you want us to cover in future videos. Other than that, that's it for me. Thanks, Ruza, for joining late. We missed Chart at the end here, but hopefully we'll see him next week. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. See ya.
Take care.